All right. So hopefully you found those interesting, and especially the battle of the sexes. It's really important that they displayed, four different pairs of males and females trying to get the stuff into the trunk. And three out of the four times, the male was faster than the female. But there is that fourth time when the female was faster. And so it's important when we talk about these evolutionary differences to keep in mind that these are still average differences. This is not going to explain any single one person or any single couple or something like that. We're going to say that if I know nothing else about you except for that you're male or that you're female, I'm going to maybe make a prediction that the male will be faster at loading the trunk. I might even be surprised if the female actually loads the trunk faster. But that doesn't mean that the overall pattern is not correct, right? Like your odds are better if you guess male will be faster on that task, but you will have to accept the fact that sometimes females are better at that task. So that's the important thing to remember, that these are not sex differences that say you have to act in a particular way. These are sex differences that are observed, on average being different. Now, another approach to explain sex differences would be the behaviorist or learning theory. And in this theory, we're going to say that when we see a person displaying gender-typed personality characteristics, they've probably accumulated those characteristics through their unique experiences with reinforcement in their past, conditioning where, you've consistently been rewarded for certain kinds of behaviors or associated certain behaviors with other outcomes. Through shaping, people have been very, across your lifespan, you've been getting smiled at or clapped for, or, an encouraging hug or other things for the times that you've behaved in ways that the people in the environment around you liked. And maybe it was ignored or maybe even outwardly punished when you behaved in ways that the environment didn't like. And that's what we call shaping, right? We're going to try and guide you towards the behavior we want you to display. So gender type personality characteristics may have been deliberately, but unconsciously probably encouraged from the people around you. And then finally, there's the role of modeling, where we as potential observational learners look at a model who we perceive ourselves to be similar to. So it could be somebody of our same sex or somebody who we admire or, whatever it is. And we see how they're acting and we decide we want to be like them. And so we act like them. Or maybe we want the outcomes that they've gotten. And so that's why we act like them, because we're hoping to get the same outcomes. Or maybe we want to avoid certain outcomes and they seem to have avoided those outcomes. And so we act like them. So modeling is all about sort of looking out into our environment and we make a choice to behave in the way that the model is acting. All of this information is coming to us from lots of different sources. We're getting reinforced and conditioned and shaped from our parents. Our peers are very powerful shapers. Our peers give us very specific feedback about the appropriateness or inappropriateness of our behaviors. In school, our teachers and other administrators and other people we come in contact with give us feedback about our behaviors. And then the media also helps to train us to behave in certain ways through mostly modeling, right? We see people on TikTok or on movies or in books or on TV shows or other places behaving in certain ways and getting outcomes that we want or whatever. And it makes us want to act like they're acting, hoping that we're going to get the same kinds of outcomes that they're getting. And so the media can be kind of insidious because you don't really realize that you're modeling, that you're copying what somebody else is doing. You're just sort of aspiring. It just feels like natural. You want to wear what they're wearing and talk the way that they're talking and do your hair the way they're doing their hair. And I mean, it seems almost like you absorb it rather than deliberately model it. But these are the things that can be really super powerful. Sometimes our parents, peers, and school structures can be much more overt because we have direct contact with them. So they give us rewards, they give us punishments about our behaviors. The media, it's all really more about it sort of permeating our awareness. And so it's kind of a little bit different. Now, the cognitive approach to personality traits being associated with one or the other sexes we're always going to come back to this idea of schema. And the thing is, we've talked before about just general schemas. We've talked about the self schema. Well, now it's time to talk about gender schemas. Gender schemas would be these frameworks that we've developed across our lifespan, with our experiences in the world, that help us to figure out what behaviors are appropriate for a person like me, right? Whoever me is, you, me, whoever it is. So throughout our lives, we've been given maybe some reinforcements or some punishments for our behaviors. We've seen other people acting in certain ways. All of that stuff all just comes together into our mental framework for what it means to be, masculine or feminine or anything in between. And so these gender schemas then act as cognitive filters so that we actually notice things that are consistent with our gender schema, and we ignore things that are inconsistent with our gender schema. So we focus in on those things that we sort of are prepared to process, that we feel like is self-relevant. I mean, part of our self schema is our gender schema. Our self schema contains our personal gender schema for what it means to be the gender that we are, whatever you identify as, right? And so that's going to serve as a filter as we take in new information. It's going to serve as a filter as we try to retrieve information that we've stored. So when we are asked to notice something that is gender inconsistent, that doesn't go along with our schema for what gender means, you're told that this little boy has lost his hat. And, you did see a hat, but it was a pink sparkly sequined hat. So that's probably not what he's talking about. And so you tell him, no, I haven't seen a hat. That's the gender schema saying, well, I'd be looking for a boy's hat. And it just happens naturally. You don't even think about it. You don't even think to yourself, I did see a pink hat. That can't possibly be his. You say, I haven't seen a boy's hat. I don't know what you're talking about. It's a filter. Just like when you're shopping and you say, I only want to see the ones that are available via Amazon Prime delivery or whatever. You put a filter on, and then you just literally don't see any of the other options. You literally don't see, you don't hear, you don't process certain information. So I thought it would be interesting for you to hear from somebody who is a much more biological expert than I am. I'm a cognitive person. This person is like a cognitive neuroscientist who's going to talk a little bit about how our actual biological structures are different when we're male or female. And that's going to be a really interesting conversation. So go ahead and watch that TED Talk, and I will see you on the other side.